Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to Resource Roundtable. My name is Cindy Brooks. I'm the director of EDC Team Jefferson. Resource Roundtable is an ongoing offering every third Thursday of the month where we invite one or more guests to introduce themselves and their services to attendees. The Roundtable provides a place where our community can come together to learn more about resources available to them to start a business, grow a business, or plan to sell a business. It's a safe place to ask questions and share information in the spirit of mutual support. We seek to build over time a network that can seamlessly provide services addressing a range of business questions from startup to succession, ensuring that we have healthy, resilient, diverse, and engaged small businesses all serving the people of Jefferson County. So a little bit about etiquette. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking and put questions in the chat. Ideally, we'll have enough time that people can ask their own questions, but I want to be sure that we capture your questions. So do write it in the chat. And let's be respectful with one another. We all likely represent a number of different perspectives, and we're all here to listen and learn and share together. It's okay to agree and to disagree. I wanted to remind everyone that we do have a newsletter, and I hope that everyone signed up on it, or if you're not, please do find the link on our website and sign up. We've recently been able to offer some, connect with our resource partners and offer some free classes to people in Jefferson County that are kind of out of the norm of what we usually do. So I just want you all to be informed and aware of opportunities as they arise, and signing up for our newsletter is probably the best way to stay connected in that context. So today I'd like to introduce you to Jay Bakst. For the last 6 years, he's been serving as Jefferson County's community lean resource. He brings over 40 years of experience helping organizations increase their capacity using continuous improvement methodologies such as lean, project management, process simulation, and more. Jay facilitates a project management roundtable for the Puget Sound PMI. He is part of the Housing Solutions Network, working to increase affordable housing, and Jefferson Broadband Action Team, working to bring high-speed internet throughout the county. And Jay's also a musician who plays with the Port Townsend Symphony Orchestra. So to tell us about lean thinking and lean opportunities, please welcome Jay.
Oh, thank you, Cindy. Jefferson County has been on a lean journey for a while. But let's start off with our situation. The good news is we are a scenic, welcoming community with a great deal of community spirit and involvement. The bad news is we are a small rural county at the end of a peninsula with limited resources. And that does impact how productive and how well our businesses can be. And so we're looking at lean thinking as a way to help our organizations here be able to prosper given the situation that we're in. Running a business is difficult, always, and we're trying to make it a little bit less difficult by letting people know about some of these ideas with lean thinking. What is lean thinking? This came from the lean enterprise, or I guess lean enterprise value. It's the dynamic, knowledge-driven and customer-focused process through which all people in a defined enterprise continuously eliminate waste and create value. And I would focus more on the creating value. Eliminating waste is one of the ways that we do that. So what are we trying to do? We've identified that I've been doing the community lean resource for about 6 years. We started our lean journey a little bit before that. And one of the things we're looking at is to try to make sure that people in the community in the county understand what lean thinking can bring for them and can do for them. And so that we embrace our lean thinking principles and provide the kind of service and productivity that will enable us to grow. And we don't have a dictator or director that can say, hey, everybody's going to follow this. So what we've tried to do is to grow organically, where we work with people and their success leads to other people saying, hey, can we try that? And building it over time to get the practices used throughout Jefferson County. So what's the journey been? Well, in a lot of ways, we think it started somewhere in the first decade of the 2000s. Jefferson Healthcare had a very strong lean implementation program that they ran till about 2013, and they have been continuing that. They haven't given up on they haven't stopped lean, but they may not be doing it quite as extensively. They got it out there. Somewhere around 2011, we, through the Chamber and Team Jefferson, started to think about, okay, could we bring lean to people? How would we do that? And there were a series of workshops, and we did some talks. I actually moved here formally in about 2014 and became involved a little bit later. But starting in 2014, we had developed lean thinking classes, and they were given several times a year up until the pandemic hit in 2020. So we were in the midst of a class when it hit, and unfortunately, we haven't been able to give a class since. But we have also not only worked with for-profit businesses, we've worked with nonprofits and government organizations, and we're not the only ones that are doing this. The state has a program, and in 2014, they came and worked with Jefferson County, doing what they called the Kaizen, and they did the same thing with the planning department at Port Townsend in 2016, doing one of those Kaizens. We have been very fortunate to be able to put on some workshops targeted at nonprofits with some of the staff from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in Seattle. They come here and we work that, and we're looking to do more of that. But we did one in 2019, which was the kickoff for the Housing Solutions Network. So we're doing that. And then about 2016, I became the community lean resource, and I'll talk a little bit more about what I do in a bit. So what is lean? Lean thinking is focused on customer value. And there are two pillars that we say it stands on. One is respect for people, and the other is continuous improvement. With respect for people is we're not trying to make things better for the customer by making things worse for our employees or for us, or taking advantage of things. We want to respect everybody, and we want to build on that. And then continuous improvement is we're not really come in, let's shake everything up and we'll change everything and then everything's going to be better. We're more, let's make a little change. Let's understand what we're doing. Let's make a little change and make a little change every day, every week, every month. And over time, we'll see some tremendous improvement. And we have some examples on how that's worked with businesses here in Jefferson County. So one, I talked about customer value. So what is it we do during the day? All of us do things during the day. And anything we do will fall into one of these three categories. Either it will add value, and that means you're going to change something, you're going to provide information, you're going to do something transformative, and you're going to get it right the first time, and it's something that a customer wants. And I always want to be clear that sometimes we do things iteratively, and that's fine. Every iteration should meet its objectives, but we want to get it right the first time. But then other things that we do are necessary. They don't add value. When we take time to think about it, we see that they don't add value, but we can't figure out how not to do them. In today's technology, in today's policy, or the way we think about things, it's something that we have to do. So, going to meetings, getting some training, we have a lot of us work under constraints and laws and regulations that we have to work with. Those may not, following those may not be adding value from a customer perspective, but they're required, they're necessary. But then there's other things that we do that don't add value, and they're not necessary. And we call those waste. They're pure waste. They consume resources, they create no value, yet we have many examples of them. And if we take the time to think about it, we probably spend more time doing wasteful activities than we might imagine, just going through our day. So, mistakes are definite wasted effort. We had an example with one of the companies here where a manager had required people to write in a logbook every time something had to be thrown out or was a defect. And I'm sure that manager used that information, but that manager went on to a different position. And after 6 or 7 years, subsequent managers never looked at the book, but people kept writing in it. And so it took lean thinking for somebody to say, why are we writing these defects in this book when nobody's looking at it? And that's a great example of what we would call pure waste. So we would like to emphasize the value-added activities. We would like to control the necessary activities and eliminate the pure waste. And when we think about it, we've done studies, it may only be that 20% of our time is spent doing value-added activities. And I know that doesn't sound like much, but that's what we found over time with many different organizations and disciplines. But the good news in that is that if we can make a small increase in the amount of time we spend with value-added activities, then that's leveraged 5 times. So a 1% increase, if we can go from 20 to 21, that's a 5% increase. And so it behooves us to be able to do some of this focus and say, okay, what can we eliminate? How can we do more value-added activity? Another aspect of lean is workflow. If you think about it, what we're really looking at is from the moment a customer asks for something until we deliver a product or service to that customer is a period of time. And in that period of time, if we look on the left here, we see that there are things that get in the way. Maybe there's an eddy, it's going in a windy way. There may be a blockage in the river. All of those things get in the way of us completing the delivery of this item or service. And what we would like to do is to just make it a smooth, predictable flow that finishes without a loss of quality, but that finishes sooner and can get to the customer that much more quickly. So a lot of what we do, a lot of what I do, is to help others by identifying and removing roadblocks. So why don't we deliver something a little bit quicker? Well, usually there is some item or some situation that gets in the way. If we identify it and using some methods that have been tried and proven useful over time, if we can make things easier and remove those roadblocks, then we'll get to where we want to be that much sooner. And so we're trying to enable the community, or I'm trying to help enable the community to lower the bar that it takes in order to get over some of these roadblocks and to proceed on what they're doing. So what is it that make up lean thinking? Well, there are a couple of ideas that I'm going to talk about today. There are others that make up sort of the gamut of what lean thinking can entail. But these are some examples of how simple things can make an improvement. So here's at Red Dog Farms, looking at one of the things, which is to make something visible. If you can see it, then you can use it and you won't start looking for things. And one of the things that they did is, you can see they have a series of flags of different colors. And each of those colors means something that the people working at Red Dog know. And if you look at the farm, if you look at where the crops are planted, you can see the different colors that are there. And each one of those colors means something, which means if you're looking for something, you don't have to look at everything. You can just go right to the color that has the flag on it. And that saves a large amount of time in their day in trying to find things and get their work and their tasks done. So that's one example. Another one, this one comes from Peninsula Home Care Cooperative, is they have a whiteboard up. And the whiteboard shows where everybody's supposed to be, some of the things that are happening. They have a schedule day by day. And what this means is that people don't have to spend time looking up, where am I supposed to be? Or having to get a hold of somebody to say, what is it that we're, what is it I'm supposed to be doing? And so this is just another example. There's lots of organizations use these whiteboards to convey information. Communication is another big part of it. And one of the ideas of lean thinking is to have what they call a daily huddle. It's part of an overall communication strategy, but it's a short meeting every morning or every day where you transfer information and you have everybody there so that if something needs to happen, or if somebody needs some help, or somebody has some little extra time, they can make that well known. And so two organizations that you might think of as different, one is the Jefferson County Library and the other is ACI Boats, have these daily huddles, and they do a tremendous job in improving the productivity of the organizations. When we see a problem, and one part of lean thinking is to be able to look and see problems. But when we see a problem, we don't want to just solve the symptom. We want to try to understand what's causing the problem and address that. So it's what we call root cause analysis. and problem solving. And so this is two of the techniques we use. One is called, this one on the left is called a fishbone diagram, and you can sort of start, you can sort of see where it got the name. It's as you fill everything in, it starts to look like the bones of a filleted fish. And the other is the A3, which is a disciplined methodology for solving problems, where you go through things in a specific order so that you don't start trying to solve something before you understand what the problem really is. Another aspect of lean is to try to reduce movement. And this is an example from Jefferson Healthcare, where they tried to reduce staff movement. And using the chart on the left, you can see everybody was going all over the place. And that wasn't, that was just wasting time. With some thoughts about what they were doing, they ended up being able to do a lot more of movement in smaller distances, self-contained within it, and that's the movement that was done after. There was an 80% reduction in the amount of distance that people had to walk after they did this exercise. This is not a local one, but I like this picture so much that I have to include it, because one aspect of lean is mistake proofing. When somebody makes a mistake, in a lot of ways, it's not that person who made the mistake, it's the system allows for a mistake to occur. So you want to look and say, what can we do to mistake proof our system and eliminate those mistakes? And this one, they were, I guess, having problems with trucks running into that bridge. And so they put up this sign: if you hit this sign, you'll hit that bridge. That is the kind of making something visible and mistake proofing that we talk about a lot in lean thinking. So where have we been? In the years since we have been introducing lean thinking to Jefferson County, we have worked with 31 businesses, 41 nonprofits, and 13 public agencies. And I estimate that about 3% of the population has had some formal introduction to lean thinking. I think a lot of others have been introduced either through something other than what we've been working on, or something they had before. But that's where we've been. What is it we do? Well, one of the services or products that we provide is improving enterprise productivity with lean thinking class. Now, this is a class that's seven weeks or 7 sessions, 2 hours a session. So it's 14 hours over 7 weeks. We had done it up to when the pandemic hit. We are hoping to get this started again as soon as it's safe to do. We also have shorter workshops that may be 2 or 3 hours. So there's a waste detective workshop. What can we do to help you identify some of the activities that you are doing that fall into that pure waste? Or maybe there's something that's necessary that can be done easier or quicker if somebody else does it. I have an example from a previous job where there was one aspect of a process that was taking 3 or 4 months. And one of the big time-consuming things we had was when our tech people had to talk to a customer's tech people to get information, and they were going back and forth, playing telephone tag or email tag, whatever. And I was able to write down a list of the information that we needed. And I went and I talked to the salesperson, And the salesperson said, oh, I can get you that information at the sales meeting. Because the people who know how, the people with the answers to these are there. And so we were able, with that one simple thing of identifying where we were wasting time, we were able to cut the 3 to 4 months by almost 3 to 4 weeks on that one change. And everybody was really happy. So it worked well. We also do process improvement workshops that can take maybe 2 to 3 hours, focusing on maybe one aspect to address a particular problem that an organization might have. We can do subject presentations, probably 1 to 1.5 hours on some aspect of continuous improvement and lean thinking. And then I am available for one-on-one coaching with an organization to help identify where lean thinking might be useful. Additional resources. When we first got started, both libraries, Port Townsend and Jefferson County libraries, joined in, and they've created a lean business resource shelf. And you can see them at those websites, which we can provide. And so there are a number of lean books that are available to take out from the library, and they're there free of charge, like everything else at the library. So it works really well there. We do have some other resources. We have a Facebook page, Jefferson County Thinks Lean. And also the work that I do as the community lean resource is worked in conjunction or, as part of an overall set of services from the Chamber, from Team Jefferson, the Small Business Administration, SBDC, Lion, the business planning class, those are all different parts of how to help an enterprise or an organization improve their productivity, improve their finances. And then CIE, which I can always get this wrong. It's, I'm sorry, I forgot it, but it focuses their work on startups. And so they do a lot of this work focusing on people who are just getting started with their boot camps and stuff. But we all know each other, we all work together, and we like to provide, a complete package to people. And then who have been using it? These are all the organizations. Reached out to a number of them to say, hey, do you mind if I say that you get some use out of it? Runs the gamut from a company like Frederickson Electric or Red Rock Farms or Eatonsaw Woods to some of the more, the nonprofits like the Maritime Center, to government agencies like the Treasurer, the Auditor, and Public Health and DCD. So those are some of the organizations that are using lean successfully. And I'll just finish with a comment that was made when we first got started by Teresa Verez. Some of you may know her, that we have real challenges being a rural community, and having more small businesses build plans around lean is part of our economic development strategy. With lean, we have a common language to get us through future planning and open up areas of opportunity. And that's what we've been trying to do, at least I've been trying to do for the last 6 years. We've been trying to do this for 10 or 11 years on our journey. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Cindy.
Well, thanks, Jay. That was really interesting. I didn't know so much about lean history and how the whole process got started. And we're lucky to have volunteers and providers here in the county that understand lean and can help us learn how to be more efficient and effective in what we do, since we are in some ways remote compared to businesses and communities along the I-5 corridor. We might need to do things differently here. I have a few questions, but I wanted to open it up to the group to see if anybody has a specific question they might want to ask Jay while we're all here together, or something to offer that's relative to lean.
I'll just pass on that the CIE is the Center for Inclusive Entrepreneurship, and Rick does a really good job.
Jay, can you stop sharing your screen, or else
Sure.
a request there that we get to see each other? Thank you. Well, I have a question. I sometimes when I hear lean language, I'm questioning the thinking premises behind lean thinking. And if we're looking at a problem, that's like one side of a coin, and the other side, of course, is the opportunity. So I'm just going to pull an example from some questions that I've been hearing at the EDC. A lot of businesses are concerned with employee retention right now. And it seems like we've been working for a few decades considering employees as sort of a business resource, an expendable resource. You can manage your efficiencies by maybe hiring fewer people and expecting more of them, for instance, And so the experience for the worker is that you begin to feel like you're a cog in the wheel, not a human being, while the business is becoming more efficient. So there's a problem there, but we're also missing the opportunity, which is, what if we leveraged the full capacity of the human beings in our industry or in our business? How could we do our thing differently or better? And how could we elevate a whole system rather than just our company?
Right.
If we were attending to the opportunity rather than fixing a problem. So I'm just curious about that perspective with lean, and wonder if you could.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things regarding that. One is, remember, one of the pillars is respect for people. So we want to respect all of the people that are involved and try to avoid making them a cog in the system. The second is, I've been doing this now here 6 years as the community resource. That very idea has come up at least 6 or 7 times on a wide array of organizations. So if your organization is having trouble with employee retention, you're not alone. Now every situation might be a little bit different, but what we've done in the past is we've done what we would call a root cause analysis, where instead of saying, okay, the symptom is we can't retain employees, we can't hire them, they don't stay. Let's try to understand the root cause of why that is happening. And if we can identify, let's say 3 or 4 root causes and pick the one that we think we can have the most impact on, and then work on that, then we can have an impact. And so that's how lean thinking works, on a problem like employee retention.
Thanks, Jay. I see that Earl's asked a question in the chat about does EDC charge for the lean services? We're in the middle of sorry, it looks like Earl wants to ask his own question here. So go ahead, Earl.
No, I was going to, hang on, I just getting a phone call. I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, well, just to say out loud that we're kind of in the middle of a program review process with all the programs at EDC. We will be charging for lean services. Our website right now says that we charge $200 for a lean consultation for up to 3 people at a particular business or organization. So just know that that's under review. We will be charging. I'm not sure if it will be exactly that amount, but yeah, EDC is a nonprofit. We're in the middle of developing a funding plan. Until we sort of figure out the long range vision, we will be charging for classes because we need to, pay for the resources and the space and the provider. But we're going to keep them as affordable as we can, and you'll have to stay tuned on our website to get a really specific answer to that question over time. Thanks for asking it, Earl.
Yeah.
So Cindy, I had you asked the question about employee retention. And I can show a slide from Red Dog Farm if I can do a screen sharing that's kind of related to your question. Can I screen share?
Okay, well, give me a second here and I'll have to make you.
Yeah, and I'll just respond. George had a question about has an event been done to see what the problem is with employee retention? We've done, or I've done, as I said, maybe 5 or 6 of them. And the reality is, in each of the cases, there were some overlap, but there was a lot of very specific to their situation at that time. And so the process is the same, but the specific issues that were identified were different in the different times we've tried it. So yeah, with that, Earl.
Yeah, so this is a slide from quote from Karen Williams at Red Dog Farm, who's had a number of cohorts to Jay's lean thinking class. And what this shows is that one of the concepts of lean thinking is to not tell the workers what to do, but ask the workers how to improve the system and let them do it. And that engagement of the workers in the solving of the problems makes them feel more satisfied with their jobs and like they're contributing. And these are just some quotes that she gave us that I think Cindy kind of maybe is targeted at the question you were asking.
I mean, I understand from that slide, by having them involved in the process, it creates a feeling of ownership at the employee level. And yeah, I understand that. What did you find anything about gaining employees? Even at 78%, you had turnover. So how did you apply lean? Did you do an event to figure out what were the problems you were having with finding and hiring employees?
Well, I mean, I would say there are, when you lose employees, there are employees you lose for good reasons. And then there are employees you lose for what we'll call not so good reasons. And so, for example, if an employee gets married and the couple now decides to move to someplace different, I would say that's a good, that's not a knock on the organization that you've lost that person. That's part of life. Or if a person gets a really great opportunity at a different organization, that could be a good loss as well. But if people are getting frustrated or people are feeling that they're not respected and they leave not to go to something better, but just to leave, then that's what you try to avoid. Yeah, I don't think any organization is ever going to get to 100% retention.
Sure. But I mean, you've seen it. You look everywhere and there's, we're hiring, help wanted.
Right.
I mean, everywhere.
Yeah.
So has there been, a Lean Six Sigma or whatever kind of event done to try and understand what are the root causes for small businesses struggling to find people to apply, number one, two, and then hire. I mean, I've talked to other owners and they'll give the job to someone and that person says, great. And then either they never show up or they show up for one day and never come back. I mean, those are, so the retention part, I get it, the retention part, but the acquisition, right? There is a
Right.
serious problem across everywhere.
Yeah.
So has there
Um,
an event been done to maybe understand what the root causes are for that acquisition problem?
We've done a number of events within organizations or groups of organizations to identify what was their problem at that time. But the idea I would propose for you as far as lean thinking is to not have, not think of having one big event that's going to answer all the questions, but to maybe have something that we start and say, these are what we think might be the problem, and to start addressing some of those. If you want to ask why you're not able to hire somebody, you can come up with some root causes that potentially could be the problem, but you don't know. The other is if your company has a reputation of not treating people well or not being a great place to work, then that's going to get around and you're going to have trouble hiring. One of the companies that I worked with, Tolan Home Garden, when they started their lean journey, they went through a number of issues that they had to look at. But over time, they were able to reduce their job, their losses and their ability to hire people and to hire the right people, and to change the hiring process that they used in order to hire the right people. But that took a couple of years. So it's not a one and done type thing. You have to think about it and try to work towards where you want to get.
We can also look at data, and what we're noticing is an influx in people wanting to start their own companies right now. So if I do some rough interpretation there, I'm sensing a lot of dissatisfaction in being an employee, and people that have aspirations for their lives and want more control over their time and their focus, are choosing to take their own future into their own hands. And I think that speaks to, maybe a misguided conversation that employers have been having about incentives. Maybe incentives isn't the way to look at employee retention. Maybe it's more about capacity building, looking at the value of the human beings at the business or organization, and trying to figure out what aspirations people have for their lives and how that business can help them on their journey, creating a win-win out of that 8 hours or 10 hours a day that you're spending at work.
Yeah, it's just, I bought this business, and when I wrote my business plan, there were, 2 profit lines I wanted to add to it, which meant that I needed to hire more people. And I'm just sort of trying to get ready, right, to set myself up for success in establishing those profit lines, because the long pole in the tent is the employees. I mean, I want to give jobs to people. It's just, I'm really concerned about being able to find them and then hiring them. I'm actually going to talk to, those kind of headhunter kind of organizations and see what they can do. But that's why I'm really interested in the employee acquisition, because I want to establish these other profit lines, but there's no way I can do it without more employees. I'm talking about doubling what the current workforce is for that business.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
mean,
George,
one person's a problem.
George, one thing you might want to know about is that there's a job fair for high school students on May 26th at Chimacum High School. So we're trying to take a step back and look at who's here already, since, you know, housing is sort of skinny and it's hard to buy a house. There's lots of, you know, obstacles to having people move here, but who's here already? What do they aspire to do or become? And then how do we link that to employment opportunities that are aligned with their goals and visions for themselves? You know, like, we really need to look at the whole system and who's here and see how we can connect the dots, because yeah, we've got some obstacles to overcome.
So I thought I saw, and I apologize, I don't remember the name, Jefferson County Historical Society, that you had, I thought, your hand up a while back.
Yeah, actually, Earl partly answered that question. I was curious about how workers had a stake in the lean discussion typically, and partly around this idea of waste. I think waste is can be viewed differently from different perspectives. Like the example provided about walking, how much movement there is, like movement can actually be a really good thing at organizations where you're sitting a lot and you need to get your blood moving in order to just have your brain work. Like, I work in the basement, the bathroom's on the second floor, there's 2 flights of stairs. I could build a bathroom down here, right? But, and maybe that would be more efficient, but actually walking those flights of stairs is really good for me. It might not be the most efficient thing. So just wondering how that, you know, when we look at just in general, this idea of waste, whether it certainly, I would imagine that varies widely for different organizations, but also just knowing that employees have a voice in this process, and that if that movement is good for them, that they could voice that and say that it might look like waste from a management perspective, but for us, getting up and moving is really important to our workflow. So
Yeah.
that was one of my questions.
One of the, you know, as I mentioned, one of the pillars of lean thinking is respect for people.
Mhm.
The other, or one of the aspects of that, is who would know best how to improve a situation than the people doing it. And so, yeah, we usually, it's not me as an outsider coming in saying this is wasteful, or management coming and saying this is wasteful. What we try to do is to teach the employees how to look at things and recognize waste. The example I gave about writing in that book, that was done by somebody who did the writing in the book. That wasn't done by any manager who probably didn't even know that the book existed. And so when we do a waste detective workshop, we do it with the employees. And they're the ones who are going to identify what, you know, would be wasteful based on some, you know, the general criteria that we give. And we try to teach people how to look for waste, and then they can make a decision. And then the other aspect I'd say is that almost everything that we do that we want to make a change has a conflicting side to it. You know, it's, you know, this way it would make things more effective, but, you know, this way it makes things less desirable. So you have to balance, you know, so we're balancing that. You know, it's all part of the lean journey, and that's why it's not a one-time, but an ongoing, continuous activity. And then Heather, you had your hand up.
Well, I was just going to add along those lines. I had the opportunity to work with Jay recently with workshops that we were leading for international development practitioners. And one of the things that I found really meaningful in part of the process we were doing with that was including within the lean thinking conversation stakeholder mapping that was really about looking at all of those relationships. And I was thinking in the discussion about employees and employee acquisition, this whole landscape of who is here, Cindy, to your point about the job fair coming up and the high school students who are here, but like, what is that landscape of interconnectedness and how do people relate to one another? How do they hear information? What information matters? I think that is also a key piece of this. And I really appreciated learning from Jay and also working with some of all of those communication pieces that can be layered on top of or beneath the lean thinking sort of journey.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Nice to see you here. Jay, what do you say to people who are interested in a lean, but they're already working as hard and fast as they can right now, and it's really hard to integrate that lean thinking in their actual place of work?
Yeah, that's always a tough one, and it's something that I've run into for about 40 years that I've been doing this. There is a little bit of extra work that you have to do and keep the big picture in mind of being able to really see some improvement in what amounts of time that you have available. There are many stories of people who maybe it took 2-3 years of working on various aspects, but once that was done, what was taking them 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week, they were able to do in 20. And so now they had almost half their time available to work on different things. It's somewhat of a leap of faith that, yeah, you have to put in a little bit of extra time. You have to learn and try a number of different things, but the benefit that you're going to see is great. I'm going to hope not put them on the spot, but Earl, have you run into any great solutions to that question?
Yeah, it's the typical question of we don't have time to figure out how to be better. So, we can't spend the time to figure out how to make more time available for ourselves. I'd say that the thing to do is start with something simple, that if you can fix it, you can save some time, and then go to something more complicated rather than starting with what is the biggest roadblock you face, which may take quite a bit of effort to overcome. Jay calls this the pebble in the shoe. What's the pebble in your shoe that annoys you every day, but you don't take the time to take it out of your shoe? Find that pebble in your shoe in your workplace and fix it. And by the way, make sure that everybody in your workplace sees it. So, when the hospital started their lean journey back in 2006, the place they started was with the hospital laundry, because the laundry was not able to get the clean laundry done every day and out to the various stations in the hospital, and everybody could see it. And so they spent it took them 1 week to kind of reorganize the laundry. By the way, the people that did that were the ladies in the laundry. It wasn't an outside consultant. It was the outside consultant helping the ladies in the laundry completely redesign their workspace. And by the end of the week, they had reorganized it, gotten rid of inefficiencies and roadblocks. And the next week, all the laundry was done and showing up in the hospital, and everybody in the hospital could see it. So start with something simple that motivates your employees, and unleash that power of all those employees being able to see waste and thinking about how they can get rid of it, and then kind of go from there.
So, yeah.
Well, Jay, how will people get in touch with you if they're interested in a lean consultation, or if they want to get on maybe a wait list for a lean class?
They can, let me get back here. They can contact me. Let me put it back up. Well, I'll just put in the chat my contact information. My phone number is 253-709-2850. And you can send an email request either to admin@edcteamjefferson.org or Jay@ravia, RAVIYAH.com. And I'll put that in the chat.
We also on the EDC website have a lean drop down where there's a short form where you just put your name and contact information in, and that ends up on a Google document that we can then send your information to Jay so he can reach out to you.
Okay, so that's in the chat.
Very
And
good.
sorry. Cindy, I thank you for the opportunity.
Well, you're very welcome. We're always happy to connect with you, Jay, and learn more about how you're helping people in the community. We're really lucky to have such strong lean resources here. Any last questions before we call it a wrap?
Great, then everybody have a good day.
All right. Yeah, thanks for coming, everyone. Enjoy the sunshine.